When was the last time a computer genuinely thanked you? And what if the last person who thanked you in a shop was only really doing it because an AI nudged them to? I recently read a report about a fast food company that's experimenting with AI systems that monitor how friendly employees sound when they speak to customers. The technology listens to tone, language, and behavior, and then assigns employees a friendliness score. In other words, they're using AI to measure, optimize, and adjust the emotional output of their workers. Now, obviously, different people will have different opinions on this. Employers may see using AI to strengthen quality of service in this way as progress, whereas employees may see it as a breach of their privacy and yet another layer of control over their working lives. But when you zoom out, it reveals something much deeper about the trajectory of work over the past 2 centuries, because really this is just the next step in a much older mission, one that I think is responsible for so much discontent in society. The project of trying to make humans act and behave like machines. To understand why this is happening, we need to go back to the Industrial Revolution. Before industrialization, most people worked in environments where labor was tied closely to their own lives. Farmers worked their land, craftspeople produced goods, and shopkeepers interacted with customers within their own businesses. This kind of work was a bit messy, but it was personal and deeply human. Then factories arrived, and they required something very different. Factories create a pressure for standardization, because machines operate at their best when everything around them behaves predictably. So workers were reorganized into systems where tasks were broken down into repeatable steps. You stand here, you do this action, and then you repeat it all day, every day. The human became a component inside a system, a cog in a much larger machine. This mindset is rooted in scientific management, or Taylorism, a century-old philosophy that used stopwatches to turn factory workers into human machines. Today, the stopwatch has been replaced by an AI algorithm, shifting our obsession with efficiency from the movement of our limbs to the output of our emotions. And I've got really strong feelings about this that I won't elaborate on now, other than saying that this kind of monitoring is absolutely catastrophic for human contentment. But regardless, once that mindset took hold, it began expanding. First, we optimized physical labor, then we optimized productivity, and we even optimized time. But today it seems that companies are attempting to control something much more intimate and important: human emotion. When technology allows a company to measure tone of voice, facial expressions, or even conversational sentiment, then the logic becomes simple. Friendliness improves customer satisfaction, and because we can now measure it, it can be optimized. But while logical on the surface, doing so is problematic. Because, as I've already said, human beings aren't machines. We're complex, unpredictable, and shaped by the experiences of our lives. Some days we're cheerful, and some days we're not. Some days we're distracted because, well, life's complicated. Trying to smooth out that natural variation into a metric may make customer service more efficient, but it neglects the needs of people by trying to remove individuality from our behaviour. In my mind, the real danger here isn't surveillance, although that's understandably a concern and the thing that most people will focus on. But I think the deeper issue for individuals and society is the attempt to standardize personality. When employees are measured and scored on their emotional output, something important begins to disappear. It's a little thing called authenticity. People stop being themselves and start performing behavior that the system rewards. Conversations become scripted and expressions become rehearsed. Interactions become predictable, and gradually the spice of everyday human life is removed until communication between people becomes bland. We've all experienced this already. You walk into a chain store or call a customer service line, and the person that you speak to sounds almost identical to other people in the system. Not because they are identical, but because they've been trained, monitored, and shaped towards the same approved behaviour. The result is something that feels efficient but lacks everything that proper human interaction should be. Because real humans are messy. Some people are naturally warm and chatty, and some people are slightly grumpy. Some people are thoughtful and reserved, while others are a bit indifferent. Weirdly, even though this might feel like something to be evened out, customers generally don't like dealing with someone who acts like a robot. And while we may prefer polite, friendly members of staff, we actually don't want what guaranteed politeness provides: inauthentic, scripted interactions. And so I'm making this video in part to say this: that variation is not a flaw that needs to be fixed. It's the richness of social life. It's an essential aspect of what makes the lives of both employees and customers interesting. And you know what? As AI systems and automation become more common, that human unpredictability will become more valuable, not less. Because in a world of perfectly optimized, machine-mediated interactions, genuine human emotion will begin to stand out. And as a result, imperfection will become a recognized mark of authenticity. If you run a company or manage people, there's something you can take from this. Just because technology allows us to measure something doesn't mean we should measure it or try to control it, especially when that thing is human emotion. Obviously, engineering employees' personalities would create short-term improvements in consistency, but in the long term, the result is generic, vanilla customer service that the public will recognize and associate with the company in question. Plus, using tech in this way will create environments where employees feel monitored, constrained, and emotionally manufactured. And over time, that will harm individuals and change the culture of an organization. Instead, I'd suggest accepting something that the industrial mindset has struggled with for 2 centuries. Humans are not machines. We're expressive, imperfect, and shaped by the circumstances of our lives. And those quirks in our behaviour are not things to be controlled or deleted. They're essential aspects of what makes human interaction meaningful. As automation and AI gradually handle more of the routine, scripted, optimised parts of service work, what remains uniquely human will become increasingly valuable: authenticity, personality, and messiness. In other words, the very things that optimization systems seek to remove. So perhaps instead of trying to engineer emotional perfection, businesses should do the polar opposite, creating environments where human individuality is celebrated and placed front and center, allowing difference to exist without it being measured, scored, or smoothed out. Because in an increasingly automated world, genuine human character may end up being one of the most valuable things a company can offer. And in the long term, you're better off building a brand people can trust rather than a simulation. People can spot inauthentic brands a mile away. If you're interested, I've popped a link to the article that inspired this discussion. It's in the description below. Have a read if you've got the time. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future. This video was based on my writing over at layeredfuture.com. If you'd like to explore the full article or browse through other topics, you'll find it all there.